Here is a painting of the Battle of COWAN'S Ford. Now, the most preeminent Revolutionary War patriot that is buried here in the Hopewell Cemetery is General Davidson. You've got that big monument with the bronze plaque on it over there. So, and we will identify the names on that marker, and then I'll walk you through to where I know the names are, except for we're not going to walk to Rural Hill and see Major John Davidson. I won't take you that far. But I am essentially dressed as General Davidson would probably have appeared that day, civilian. He was the Brigadier General of the Salisbury Military District, Salisbury being the main city. George Washington, when he came through Charlotte in 1792, called Charlotte a trifling place. It only had about 25 structures. Salisbury was much bigger and much more well established at the time. So if you were anybody in the area, that's where you would have been. Plus, that's where the military headquarters were for that same purpose. The Yadkin River in that direction, because the Catawba River's in that direction, was basically the boundary line. I know it's not a perfect line that's straight because it's a river, but if you start at South Carolina and go essentially straight up, everything west of that was the Salisbury Military District. There was no Tennessee. So the boundary line essentially was the Mississippi River. Well, yes, but they didn't know what was out that far. There were settlers that were over in Nashville, so I just kind of give you to the Mississippi because that's where us European settlers would have at least been that far. And there was claims by France on the other side of the Mississippi at that time. And Spain down in Mexico, up into California. So we had other other empires in the world that were laying claim to land all the way over to the Mississippi. I mean, all the way to the Pacific. So I pretty much put it at the Mississippi because Nashville, it was Nashboro then. There was a settlement there. The Cherokees didn't like us being there either. So they were attacking in that area. One of their leaders, one of the young leaders of the Cherokees, he broke off. His name was Dragon Canoe, Chief Dragon Canoe, and he moved down to Tennessee, to Chattanooga area, and there was a creek or a river that was the Chickamauga, and they changed their name from Cherokee because they basically were the ones that were going out and fighting. The old leaders in the North Carolina mountains were trying to have peace with the white settlements into the Appalachian Mountains. And even Nancy Ward, full Cherokee, she had married a white gentleman, took the last name of Ward, and had some children with him. She was for peace. She was a cousin to Dragon Canoe. So even in the Cherokees, there was divisions of, you know, who wanted peace, who didn't want peace. And Dragon Canoe didn't want to give up land, and but white settlers were still coming in droves down the Great Wagon Road, and we still wanted land. So that brought some points of contention there. So one of the things about the Battle of the COWAN'S Ford, it was in a bigger plan of General Greene to bring to Salisbury a battle. It needed General Davidson to be a part of that. The untimely death of General Davidson, and I think in the picture here, he's right here on the horse. He has his sword, and he drew it out, so they were able to identify him as an officer and were able to take a shot at him. But I don't take this map for precise accuracy. I am working on the book of the Battle of COWAN'S Ford, and I am digging into the real life eyewitnesses, the pensioners, and I have identified over 3,000 pension records that were on the Catawba River, or up and down the Catawba River on February 1st, 1781. So if you understand the dynamics about General Greene's plan, he wanted to ruin Cornwallis. The victory at Cowpens was a victory on January the 17th, approximately 2 weeks before, by General Daniel Morgan. General Daniel Morgan was directly under the command of General Greene. And General Greene had given him literally paperwork that said he was the supreme commander, Daniel Morgan, west of the Catawba River over there.
It's all lies. I wouldn't believe a word he said.
She's heard me many times.
I have.
Yes, 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 yes. I need you up here to help me.
No, I'm going back.
I hear you. Necessity. Anyways, and she's part of the Mecklenburg militia, so this is General Davidson, who was commanding the Mecklenburg militia, so she's heard me before.
That's right.
Yes, yes. So, anyways, see, she agreed with me, so I got something right. Anyways, this here would be the Mecklenburg side. The other side of the river was Lincoln County. Basically, if you go up to Highway 73 and you turn and you cross the bridge at the base of the dam, there's a place where you can go that's the lookout point, and you would be on the side of the river that the British were, and they were looking across. The island in the middle was where the horse ford would have went across. Some people in my research believe that the ford is underwater. I do not believe that it is underwater. I believe that it is on this side of the dam. One of the things about modern roads with pavement, they don't change. But when you have dirt roads that wagon wheels put 2 ruts in, they wash out. It was washed out by the 1820s, and a new road was established. One of the gentlemen that drew a map in the 1820s was, at that point he became General Joseph Graham. He had the iron furnace, the Vincennes, over in Lincoln County. I think there's a chapter of the DAR over there for that. Right. Vesuvius furnace. So if you look at his 1820s map that he did for Archibald Murphy, he draws the 2 fords. He says it goes here now, but he doesn't keep drawing it. The Lucas House is on the map, and he says this is the way it goes now. This is the Revolutionary Ford. So if you go back and you look at that map, you'll see it's south of the one that's above. I believe the Lucas House is underwater. I believe the Revolutionary Ford is south of the dam, because you'll have a lot of stuff that the Duke Power puts out. And I think it was Dr. Chalmers Davidson, who's buried out at Rural Hill, also a historian at Davidson College, who he thought it was the ford that I believe is the Lucas House Ford, and not the actual Revolutionary Ford that is south of the river. One of the things, if you take a map and you can measure it, Graham, also in his book, History on the American Revolution, he says that it is about 160 yards north of the coming out place, which was the wagon ford. There was the horse ford, there was the wagon ford. What we see here where Davidson at, that they're portraying, is basically the wagon ford. You don't see the island in this picture because it's down here. So they missed coming and going across the wagon ford. One of the reasons why I believe that they did, if you look at, if you're deeply interested in it, like I am, Robert Henry also notes in his book, in his narrative, if you have to read through it, it's not at the section where it talks about where he thinks Davidson got killed, but Davidson didn't get killed there. on the edge of the river. They retreated back up the hill. And in the pension records, eyewitness accounts, one guy says that he heard when Davidson got shot, and this is an interesting thing. I brought with me, this is a rifle. This is, if you're going to bring food home to eat for your wife to cook, the deer or the squirrel, hopefully you get a deer, then you're going to have a rifle. And think of it, gentlemen, I know you know, but I know ladies, you probably have seen a football game at least once in your life. The quarterback, when he puts the spin on the football, it spirals. It's a straight shot. So you have rifling inside of a rifle that is going to make the shot go straight. One of the things is to be steady enough to be able to shoot a rifle. You can't be in a river with a rushing current. And since we have recent history of Hurricane Helene, and we had water rushing down the Catawba River, I mean, cars are getting washed away. I don't think a man can stand in the river and shoot somebody. And General Cornwallis actually has a written letter that he wrote Lord George Germain. He explicitly gave an order for no one to shoot from the river. In fact, General Leslie's horse toppled over. General Charles O'Hara's horse toppled over. A horse is heavy, like a car. It can move them. Yes. How did the men cross? I'm going to use this as an example, but think of it just as a wooden pole. Longer than this. 4 men to a wooden pole to walk across. While one person's foot is up, 4 feet are on the ground. To stabilize the soldiers going across, and even in Joseph Graham's book, he writes that they had the poles that they discarded once they came across the river. You're not going to go across a rushing river, and it says in the book that it was waist deep. Rushing water, waist deep. It can move a car, it can knock a horse over, it can wash a man down the river. So, that is how they crossed the river. Even with that, Robert Henry says there are over 100 British redcoats that drowned. They didn't even get shot. They drowned because they couldn't hold on to the pole. The water, the current pulled them. Probably the guy that was on the south end, because there was, I don't know, it could have taken all 4 of them. You know, if all of them didn't have their feet and they got wobbly, you know, it could take out a whole group. In the reports that I have found, the British Army, the whole time of the American Revolution, the whole war, 8 years, British deserters did not amount to more than 5%. Cornwallis, when he left South Carolina after the defeat on January the 17th at COWAN'S, the head count, a roster was taken. Cornwallis needed how many men he had. The day after, on the 18th, General Alexander Leslie joined him with another 1,000 men. So he nearly lost 1,000 on the 17th. For sure, there were captured 600. There were supposed to be British soldiers there of 1,000, but the horses rode away. There were about 250 horses. So that's 850. So I don't know what happened to the extra 150, whether they were prisoners or they just went missing. But when he did take a roll call, that roll call is documented in the Cornwallis papers. The next major battle is at Guilford Courthouse in Greensboro. At Guilford Courthouse, before that battle, he takes another roll call. So he started out with about 2,500 men in South Carolina, and he ends up there. He has about 2,250 approximately. So he's lost about 250 men. In that example, British soldiers didn't desert because they knew they would be killed down here. Redcoats?
Right, where are they going to go?
That's 10% of Cornwallis's army. The Battle of Cowan's Ford represents approximately, if we know 100 died there, if you go to Salisbury and I think it's near City Hall or the museum, and then on one of the other roads, it's the English cemetery. Cornwallis took wagons from here with wounded. He also left wounded at the Lucas House with a surgeon, but he took them to Salisbury. The reason it's called the English cemetery is because he buried a lot of soldiers that they didn't have penicillin, got wounded, and died. So that 250, if 100 were lost on the river here, I know that there were supposedly, he gave a report of about 30 wounded on the banks that he left, so that's 130. If you have, I don't know, 50 more, 70 more die in Salisbury, that's 200. You know, and then they were also, when they would send them out on foraging parties to go find food, the Americans were capturing them and taking them prisoner. So there's possibility for an extra 150. I don't believe the British soldiers from January, February, March, 2 months, when 8 years, 5% desertion to 10% loss of Cornwallis's troops in 2 months happened without the loss at the Battle of Cowan's Ford, which is General Davidson. So I think he is the preeminent patriot that is buried in this cemetery. There are others listed on there. Davidson, this was not his home church. His home church was Center Presbyterian, that is below Mooresville, 85, Mooresville, and Mount Morin. So that's where his wife lived. That's where his plantation was. Technically, at the time, it was not Iredell County, it was Rowan County, because the county line went across there. So Davidson was killed 7 miles away from here. He was brought to the Richard Berry house afterwards. His body was stripped by Cornwallis of all the clothes. One of the things...
His wallet. You found it.
I found his wallet. His wallet. General Davidson's wallet.
Where'd you find it?
I bought it.
Oh.
Thank you. A leathersmith. But it is actually a reproduction that is just like his. The only thing that I don't have is there is a little pencil holder right here. This church, and Pastor Jeff Lawrence was instrumental in petitioning Her Royal Majesty, Queen Elizabeth II, to bring the wallet here in, I think, 2000. And so I also am in the Scottish Games, and the only thing that the British government asked was that the head of the public records office in London, who was bringing this, brought this wallet, not this wallet, this is reproduction, but it's well worn, like it would have been John Davidson's wallet, over here, and we went, now this is before 9/11, so we went to the airport, we went out to concourse, I was wearing my kilt, 2 of my brothers and my cousin, we were his bodyguard. We were in kilts. We had bagpipes, we had drums, and we had about 100 people. This guy did not know what to do when he got off the plane. He's coming from London, England, and all these Scots are coming to meet him.
Get back on the airplane.
Where's the wallet today?
It's back in London. It came to visit for 1 year.
That's it.
1 year it was on loan. We took it to Guilford Courthouse, and it was in the museum there on display. It came in on July 3rd. They were supposed to come back and get it the next year, July 3rd. Unfortunately, some of these folks who are in the Scottish community don't know how to ingratiate themselves to the Queen of England. They wrote her letters and demanded that she give it to us, saying it was spoil of war. And the guy waited a whole month later to come back. He didn't want to come back on the official date to pick it up. He was afraid that more Scots would show up and protest. You know, they did have some wars like with Robert the Bruce and William Wallace over in Scotland. So, you know, and see, the Presbyterians are Scots, Irish, and the Patriots are Scots, Irish. Why do you think the British feared us? We're Scots, Irish. Oh my goodness. So, you know, there's a lot of history in the Scots fighting the British. So, you know, George Washington actually said that if he had to make his last stand in America with any group, it will be with the Scots Irish. He knew that their fight with the English went deep and they would not give up ever. Freedom! Freedom!
When's your book coming out?
Huh?
When is your book coming out?
I have written segments on it to do the whole story on all the soldiers. Let's just say I hope to get it finished before the 250th ends, which is actually 2033. I have written a book
Of the whole war.
Peace Tree. Yes, 8 years. It just started. I have time.
I'll be excited to read that.
Well, one of the things, just so you know, I'm gonna try to get out the story that I've already developed. There's about 50 soldiers that accompanied the British soldiers from the defeat at Cowpens. Everybody's heard of the story of the race to the Dan.
Mm-hmm.
So, do we imagine that's a long ways off? I mean, I know someone's going to go see it tomorrow. How far is that from here?
To drive, hour and 20 or 30 minutes.
Yeah, on horse.
Okay. How many people know where Fredericksburg, Maryland is? How far away is that?
7.5 hours.
So an hour and a half, 7.5 hours. The British soldiers went there after the loss at Gaffney, Cowpens.
It didn't go so fast.
No, it didn't go so fast. It took them about to the end of the year. It was about the time when Cornwallis was surrendering at Yorktown. And, you know, he was chasing Greene and Morgan through here to try to recover his prisoners. After the surrender at Yorktown, the prisoners were reunited in prison. The surrender at Yorktown. Now, they didn't put Cornwallis there. He did get to stay in a nice place. You know, he's the general. Anyway, he's the Lord.
No, he didn't come to the surrender. He had,
Yes,
his name was O'Hara, wasn't he? Luke?
General O'Hara.
Oh, he was a general.
Yeah, General O'Hara. Yeah, he was the second in command. And he was crossing at the Catawba River too. His horse got toppled over in the river. I mean, Cornwallis's horse got shot. So, and it stayed alive long enough to get to the other side, Mecklenburg side, and then fell dead. Okay, if they're shooting at the horse, maybe they're shooting at the man on the horse?
Maybe.
Yes. Cornwallis could have been dead. It could have been Cornwallis dead instead of General Davidson. This would have been Yorktown here. Yes. So this was a lot of things. That was Greene's plan. He wanted to ruin Cornwallis. He might have also killed him at crossing the river. Just to segue into a modern scenario. Everybody's heard of Napoleon. Everybody's heard that Napoleon tried to invade Russia.
Right.
He took a large number. Do you know how many people he took to that invasion?
He took a lot, but didn't have to come back.
Was it like 500,000?
Might have been.
When he came back, he probably had about 100,000. One of the problems in going across that terrain was crossing rivers. He lost a large percentage of them in crossing rivers. just like Cornwallis did here. But the risk to stay on the west side of the Catawba River and General Greene in Salisbury getting General Davidson, who under his command, the western half of North Carolina, remember it goes all the way out to Tennessee, had 20,000 men. Cornwallis had 2,500. If he could just get 10% of them, well, he had 3,000 up and down the Catawba River. When I say up and down the Catawba River, how many people have crossed 85? How many people know where the Whitewater Center is? How many people have been in the Whitewater Center? If you go on the Whitewater Center on the right-hand side, walk down that path, there's a trail that goes right there. If you look down, there's a ravine there. That is Tuckasegee Ford Road. That goes to Tuckasegee Crossing. If you go all the way down that path and walk all the way to the river, you will look out and you will see the island in the middle of the river. It has a name. It's called Sadler's Island. If you look from the interstate going towards Gastonia or Gaston County, if you look up, you can see the tip of the island, this side of it. They crossed that island. That was Tuckasegee Ford. Below Tuckasegee Ford, not on. Yes, on this map is the South Fork of the Catawba River, which comes into the Catawba River. So there's Charlotte, so you're going across here, just straight west. So when you cross here at Tuckasegee Ford in this area, if you go lower than this, you cannot cross the Catawba River. It's heavier until you get down towards 77 where it crosses into Rock Hill. Down there is Nations Ford Road. Back to the Catawba Indian Nation. Nations Ford Road is named after the Catawba Indian Nations. That's why it's called Nations Ford Road. Nations, Catawba, Nation, Nations. That was the ford that they used. That's the first ford down here from here that you can cross over. So Cornwallis wasn't going to go south to come across to Charlotte. He had to go up north. And up here, Oliphant's Mill is Sherrill's Ford. Sherrill's Ford is Highway 150 out of Mooresville. Up here, which isn't on the map, this cuts off right there. This is Island Ford up here. It was a big island. Right now, it is Lookout Shoals Lake. Cornwallis wrote Lord George Germain and said that the militia covered the Catawba River approximately 40 miles. If you get a modern map and you look at the scale on it and you measure it out, I came up with 39.5 miles. How Cornwallis, I'm sure he had some kind of little graphs and his measurements and stuff like that. He said the 3,000 militiamen were on the Catawba River in this space. COWAN'S Ford is just one of the spaces. You have Tuckasegee Ford. You have over at Rural Hill, Tools Ford. Then you go to COWAN'S Ford. Then Beatty's Ford. You know where Brawley School Road is?
Yep.
It's changed. It used to be Beatty's Ford Road. If you follow it and go back to the river, that was Beatty's Ford. If you go straight across, you'll get the old Beatty's Ford Road on 85 right near China Grove. That's just a straight shot. It was from the Catawba River over to the Yadkin River. That was Beatty's Ford Road. Part of it is still named Beatty's Ford over in Rowan County, but not over in Iredell County. They changed it, all that development.
That's the same road, Rutherford County to Rowan, and it's the same Beatty's Ford Road.
Yeah, Brawley School, it was Beatty's Ford Road. It was just one straight shot across, going to China Grove. China Grove is on Highway 29 that goes out of Charlotte. 85 pretty much runs parallel to Highway 29. And 29 goes on up into Danville and goes up to South Boston, which is where she's going tomorrow. Yes.
So Charlotte was called Charlottesburg back then too.
Well, it says Charlottesburg, but it's also been called Charlottetown and so forth. So you have this interesting dynamic here. And so the people here at this congregation, this is the most Northern Presbyterian church, and then you have Center. So these folks were all involved in the battle at Cowan's Ford. I mean, 7 miles away. General Davidson went out and recruited and said, men, I'll pay you for 3 months if you come and serve a month and a half. February and half of March. So, or January and half of February. So the men came out in droves, 3,000 of them. They were going to put a quick end to Cornwallis. That was the whole point. That was the plan that General Greene had. He instilled it into General Davidson, and that was the significance of why there were 3,000 men, and it only took 10 days. General Morgan defeated Tarleton at Cowpens on January 17th. He raced across to Sherrill's Ford, let's just say Mooresville, Highway 150. If you want to know exactly where it is, the best way to go is up to Troutman on 85. Go out, go to the North Carolina or the Lake Norman State Park, drive all the way out that, get a map at the entrance, find the campground that's near the peninsula there, and go to that, take the walking trail, get off the walking trail, go up to the top of the hill, and if you look over that bluff at the river, there were 9 islands there that was called Sherrill's Ford. If you go across the lake on 150, go to the town of Sherrill's Ford, and then there's a neighborhood that goes down there. If you're at the peninsula on the east side and you look across, you'll see a neighborhood on the other side. You can come to this side. The Sherrill family put a monument up near there about the crossing where the family was, Sherrill's Ford. So that's the best way for me to tell you where you can actually physically walk to it. Now, they tell you don't get off the trails. I did. There's a cemetery up there on the top of the hill. The Oliphants. There on the map there was Oliphants. Now Oliphant's Mill was bigger than Charlotte, as big as Salisbury, and the people from the west who were coming to get supplies to go back west would cross at Sherrill's Ford. It was called a public ford. They would cross there and they would get merchandise that they would buy to go back home with. It was a grist mill too, so they could grind their corn. Oliphant's Mill. That's the whole reason. And it was a big town, and supplies were there, and people had that. If you look on this map, you can see Oliphant's Mill, and there's Salisbury. So you can see, and then you can see Charlottesburg. It's dense because it's right on the river, but it's about the same size, if not more. Not too much different. The Salisbury was much bigger because there were 25 dwellings here, and you can see Oliphant's Mill right here. And just above that, on the river here, is where Sherrill's Ford is. So that's Oliphant's. And so on that hilltop there, and this is probably some of the hilltops, the Lake Norman, it was called the Catawba River Valley. The water filled in the valley. There's towns, there's stuff under the lake. Yeah. So Oliphant's Mill is one of them that's under it also. So that is one of the major things. So that's Sherrill's Ford, that's Island Ford. Then there was, up here, there's Buffalo Shoals Ford. There's a bridge that crosses in Iredell County, and that is where the river is at its lowest because it backs up. And so the bridge is, you can see from one side to the other, and you can walk across the bridge. And so I've had some buddies who've done some archaeology up there, and they have found some Revolutionary War artifacts. I don't know if I told you that. She's my buddy. We talked the other night for 3 hours. She inspired me. Yeah.
All about Colton's Mill.
I dressed up like this today because she helped me with my wardrobe. Color coordinated. She said this would look best with the colors. So, but General Davidson had control of all this area up here, and they were going to put a blockade on the Catawba River to keep Cornwallis over here until the Continental troops could get to Salisbury, and then Cornwallis would come across the river, come up from China Grove, and then into Salisbury, and there was Frohock's Mill is where he had 1,000 guns stored. He had bought them himself. He used a lot of his money to finance the American Revolution, and he had 1,000 guns there. When he heard the victory at Cowpens, he told General Isaac Huger with the Continentals that were down in Cheraw to come up into Salisbury, bringing 50,000 rounds and the cannons. He was going to do battle in Salisbury. It's all in his letters. It's written out. It's very clear. It's just that what eclipses this is the Battle of Guilford Courthouse. You get Cowpens and Guilford Courthouse, and unfortunately, General Davidson got killed. If General Davidson hadn't got killed, think about this. Didn't die. He's not buried here. He's probably buried at Center Presbyterian Church. 3,000 men here. 1,000 Continentals coming up Cheraw into Salisbury. Morgan had 1,000 men, so you had 2,000 Continentals, 3,000 militiamen, and he ordered 1,000 men from Shelby and Campbell. Shelby is near Lenore, Fort Defiance. If he had 2,000 troops, Patriot, same ones that beat Ferguson at Kings Mountain, 2,000 behind, 3,000 militia, 2,000 Continentals, 7,000 to Cornwallis's 2,500. He would have sandwiched them, and it would have been Yorktown and Salisbury, and we would have the National Museum there, and we wouldn't have the wallet in London.
For how many years? For how many years?
How many years what?
The wallet. They
244 years.
They still have it. Like
Yes.
they loaned it to us for a year and then they took it back.
Yeah, they took it back fast because they didn't want them Scotch Irish trying to go in there and steal it from the national park. Yeah,
I did not know that. I thought that we got it back and
we
kept
did,
it and kept
temporarily.
for a month or a year.
A year
A year.
and a month.
But if it
Because-
belongs to him, why do they claim ownership?
Spoils of war.
Yeah. Like everything else they have in
Yeah.
their museum.
I mean, you know, the crown jewels has the biggest diamond from India or somewhere like that in it. I mean, you know, the British Empire spread out around the world. They don't like to give stuff back.
It's just a leather wallet.
Yeah, and the wallet actually, Jeff Lawrence, who was the pastor here, and we have a Lawrence room down the hallway in the administration building named for him, and a picture of him in there. He went over there and he was able to see the papers that were in there. There was a letter from George Washington. There was a letter from General Greene.
Oh.
There were about 27,
Oh.
signed by George Washington.
Did they come over with the wallet?
No, they wouldn't send the papers over.
Imagine that.
They wouldn't send the papers over. They just sent the wallet. Just. You want to touch my wallet?
Yeah, can I touch your wallet?
She's interested in the wallet.
I am.
They open it up because it's pretty much the guy that made it told me it was pretty much a reproduction of my guy's wallet. And it had the two things in there, so he could take notes. He could put things in there. It has a little flap, so if you open it, stuff's not just going to fall out of one side or another. Oh, I did bring some money. There was some money, but this is the English 6 shillings, and it's King George. So this was English money. Yeah, the Continental dollar wasn't worth much. So to actually have something that was English, this was worth its value in hard money. American inflation of American Continental not worth a Continental. That's why they said not worth a Continental. Damien,
It's cool.
this is reproduction. It's not real. Yeah.
Oh, well.
Yeah. You know, but I mean, also to stand from, look at what they considered tobacco leaves. You could redeem it for tobacco leaves. So, I mean, that held its value. I mean, that was what...
If that were original, it'd probably worth something.
Yes. Yeah, I'm not going to show you anything original. I have nothing original here. I'm the only thing that's original.
Well, there you go. I see.
Yes. So I did put that in the side with the flap so it wouldn't fall out in case you open it and stuff like that. So, anyways, does anybody else want to touch the ball?